Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
Mary Lynne Donohue of Sheboygan is a Democratic candidate in the 26th Assembly District. Mary Lynne, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye. Welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure.
You're on the Sheboygan Council, former member of the Sheboygan School District. What do local governments need in the next state budget, please?
State support for local government has been going downhill on a fairly consistent basis since the early part of the decade, of the 2010 decade. So we need a couple of things. One, we need a little bit more flexibility in terms of how we govern our own business. And second, more money would be welcome. Our percentage, of the state budget has gone from about 36 to 27%. And that's damaging. There's just no doubt about it.
What about the caps, the property tax caps to control property taxes on homes that local governments like you've served on have lived with for more than 20 years? Should those caps and those limits be continued?
So here's the contradiction. The Republican Party was always the party of local control. And with the imposition of these caps, it's no longer the party of local control. And I think that's very clear. And I would just like the Republican Party money. So I think that the property caps have been unrealistic. They have certainly hampered our ability to make needed repairs, to keep our infrastructure intact, and so forth. So I would like to see them leave. I believe, having served in local government for quite a long time, that we're a pretty responsible bunch, and I think we can handle that responsibility.
Do local governments need alternative sources of revenue? Democratic Rep. Goyke in Milwaukee has a bill that says if a referendum passed, Milwaukee could levy a half-cent sales tax. Do local governments need revenue options to ease their reliance on the property tax?
As a matter of fact, Sheboygan County implemented a 0.5% sales tax a couple of years ago for the exclusive purpose of transportation funding. So it was a somewhat contentious matter, more in how the money would get distributed than the actual imposition of the tax. As a result, the city of Sheboygan gets about $400,000 per year, more or less, in county tax revenue to be used exclusively for transport. It's been implemented and it certainly helps us.
Okay. Let's talk about the national debate over policing reforms, national and unfortunately at our front door in Kenosha. The speaker is forming a task force. Senator Van Wanggaard has a few bills. The Black Caucus has bills. What specific policing reforms do you think should be enacted?
Well, I spent 5 years on the city's Police and Fire Commission. I was president of the commission for a year. It was a very interesting experience, and I think I got some sense of how fire and police departments work. From my perspective right now, one of the most important things that we can do is increase transparency in police operations. Now, all of the proposals that Governor Evers has put forth, I frankly think they're all good, common sense, implementable kinds of policies. But if citizens really do have a complaint about their police department, it's really hard to be heard. And I think locally we could take a look at that. We have, thankfully, a very excellent police chief we have real community policing, real neighborhood policing. And I think that has made a big difference in Sheboygan. I've seen a distinct turn since my time on the Police and Fire Commission. So task force are nice. Speaker Voss's task force on water quality was certainly important, but it didn't accomplish anything. And Van Weingart has said that maybe we'll have some proposals for you by 2021, maybe the end of 2021. Let's think locally. Let's just.
Okay. You support legal medical and recreational marijuana. Why?
I have several reasons. One is the time has come. My opponent says we need to study it some more. It's been studied quite a lot. I think there is a national trend toward it. So there's some distinct advantages. One is I have friends who use medical marijuana. They have severe pain, anxiety. Marijuana helps them. Two, it would potentially be, as alcohol and cigarette taxes are, a nice tax. After all, alcohol and cigarettes are drugs, just like marijuana. Three, it gives us a chance to regulate it more so that the quality coming through is good. And then fourth, and this is really something to explore, what is the impact on incarceration of Black men in particular who are arrested for marijuana offenses? Even if they serve their time, they've got a criminal conviction, which just makes their employment possibilities distinctly more difficult. So it's just an idea whose time has come. We need to get it done, and we should do it as quickly as possible, in my opinion.
The governor just extended the statewide mask order until November 21. Do you support that?
Absolutely. I am really distraught about the extreme increase in COVID cases in Wisconsin. And, this is the one area where the Republicans did give local communities local control without any guidance, when the stay-at-home order was reversed, and they didn't have a plan, and they said, counties, cities, you are on your own. And it's been very difficult. So yes, I fully support it.
Can you hear me, Mary Lynn? We've had some technical glitch here.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm practically sitting on my router.
Okay. Well, let's say you continuing. You support the Governor's People's Maps Commission, correct? Why?
I do support it. I was one of the plaintiffs in the Whitford case. Okay. And so I was in the Supreme Court courtroom when Ruth Bader Ginsburg asked twice of Wisconsin lawyers, what about our precious right to vote? And it was a powerful experience for me, but her question is still so relevant to what's happening now. The plain fact is, until we square away the gerrymandering issue, the state is really not going to be able to move forward, because the legislature, the Republican-led legislature, simply does not have to listen. They don't care that a huge number of Wisconsinites support an independent redistricting commission. They don't care that Wisconsinites support common sense gun. They gavel in, they gavel out. And they can do that because everything is so gerrymandered. So this is a foundational issue that we need to address.
If the pandemic resulted in, I'm going to make up a number, the state government collecting $1 billion less in tax collections, and you're in the legislature voting on the next state budget, what would be your approach to making up that shortfall?
It's hard. I mean, here at the city level, I mean, we're facing a $2 million shortfall, which in state terms is not that much, but it really requires us to be thinking about how we approach things. So, one, the CARES Act, the $2.3 billion from the federal government has been very helpful to local governments, local school districts, to individuals. One of my kids was laid off, and I'll tell you that unemployment was very important to him and his family. Governor Evers has already requested that agencies submit budgets with a 5% reduction. I think those are the kind of hard things that we need to look at. We may want to look at a strategic use of the rainy day fund on a short-term basis. I think raising taxes on workers would be available. Hard to know.
Okay.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough at both the local and state level.
Last year, the governor recommended raising the gas tax, which is 30.9 cents per gallon, to stabilize how we pay for highways and bridges. Could you vote to raise the gas tax?
Sure. Here's the problem. So in 2006, as you know, the legislature, with the approval of Governor Doyle, got rid of indexing for tax on gas. Right. In 2006, the level was 30.2 cents a gallon, and it just simply has not moved in, almost 15 years. This is one of those things where politicians do something that feels good. We're going to get rid of this horrible tax that, that just keeps growing. And then you realize that you have undermined the structure that allows you to take care of your infrastructure. So transportation is just a black hole for the state of Wisconsin. We just don't seem to be able to get our arms around it. I can tell you, as an alderperson locally, people want their roads to be in good shape. And I think that's a pretty reasonable request from governments to do. So we'll see.
The role that hospitals have played nationally and in Wisconsin treating COVID-19 patients. If you're in the legislature voting on the next state budget, do hospitals deserve an even greater priority than they may have in the current budget?
Hospital. And I think that we need to, one of the most important sources, and we just don't seem to be able to get it done, is to have adequate resources for hospitals, nursing homes, schools, to have personal protective equipment. Why can't we get this done? It's crazy. So to the extent that we can rationally address these huge issues, yeah, hospitals need support, as do all these other caring facilities.
There's a bill in the legislature just introduced 3 weeks ago, and it says if an organization complies with COVID-19 protocols, it could not be sued over COVID-19. Is this a bill that you would support or oppose?
Well, I'm a retired lawyer, and I did a lot of personal injury work in my day. I did a lot of disability work. In Wisconsin, we tend not to have very large personal injury verdicts to begin with. Only covers doctors. To blanketly, in a blanket fashion, totally eliminate all business responsibility is it's not good public policy. It says to businesses, you can do whatever you want because you're not going to be held responsible. Now, we can't have hundreds of thousands of lawsuits. I think there's another concept called comparative or contributory negligence. If you're not wearing a mask and you go into a store and you get sick, well, maybe you contributed to your own health problem. We have a no-fault vaccine law, federal law, that seems to have worked well with children who are injured by vaccines. And it seems to be a really rational way to approach things. So we need negligent, what is not negligent, but just a blanket prohibition on lawsuits doesn't protect consumers.
Drawing on your experience on the Sheboygan Council, here's a question. When a local government or a school district plans a major public works project, should they have to give a preference to Wisconsin businesses?
Yes, they need to pay attention to Wisconsin businesses. Now, we have a fiduciary responsibility, so we can't just willy-nilly accept a bid that is not fiscally responsible. The good news is there are so many wonderful Wisconsin companies. At least in my experience, when we put out a bid, we get responses, from Wisconsin companies, and we award them to Wisconsin companies. So that's the good news, I think.
Then finally, you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponent on November 3?
Well, I'll show up for work. Representative Katzma is a nice guy, but we haven't seen him since April 15th. It's kind of a taxpayer-funded vacation as far as I can tell. There's so much work to be done in this state. We have such enormous challenges, and he's nowhere to be found. So I've got a couple of good things going for me. One, I'm pretty smart. Two, I just through the school board and the city council and as a problem-solving lawyer, I'm good at working with people. You know, my mentors like Cal Potter, Jim Baumgart, Fred Kessler, they tell me about the old days when people would work together. They might fight on the floor, but they could work together. And so I've been able to do that at the school board and city council level. I think I can bring that, and it's an independence of spirit. I think Representative Katzma does precisely what he's told, and that's it. And we deserve it.
Okay, thank you. Mary Lynne Donohue of Sheboygan is a Democratic candidate in the 26th Assembly District. The election is November 3. Mary Lynne, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thanks for doing these interviews. It's a terrific service. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.